Okay. Hey guys, welcome. It's, as I was saying, it's a little surreal to be up here actually presenting when usually I'm the one in the back, kind of helping the presenters, making them look good and everything. So hopefully I can do the same for myself. For those that don't know me, my name's David Carson. I've been at Neustar for almost 4 years, and you're all probably here, hopefully, because you know that I went over to the Philippines for some relief effort work. So one of the good questions is, why did I do that? I've gotten that I don't know how many times, so I hope to answer that as much as what I did and some other things as well. But part of the thing that kind of drew me there was some of the news coverage I saw repeatedly broadcast. And so you might have seen something like this or this itself.
Carrying all they could from their devastated lives. A steady stream of Typhoon Haiyan victims keeps arriving at Tacloban Airport, looking for food, water and escape. Magina Fernandez lost her home and business. She's desperate to leave on the next military plane.
Get international help to come here now, not tomorrow, now. This is really, really like bad, worse than hell, worse than hell.
As the president of the Philippines, Benigno Aquino, arrives to assess the damage, Fernandez passes on her anger.
And we need to get the word out because the Philippine government can't do this alone.
There's also a breakdown, especially in the local government level. They are necessary first responders. And too many of them were also affected and did not report for work. That also contributed to the slow delivery.
People here were convinced that it looked like a tsunami.
The mayor of Tacloban almost lost his life in the storm surge. He admits a death toll as high as 10,000 is possible.
I've not spoken to anyone who hasn't lost someone, a relative or close to them. And now we're looking for as many as we can, and we're still trying to retrieve so many people.
Faces here tell a story of horror.
Many of the people here have been walking for hours through the devastation to get here to get food and water from the military themselves. Many of them just say that they were too desperate to wait for help to get to them.
The young, the old and the injured all board a military C-130, leaving death and destruction behind them.
Okay, so I saw this and it was kind of running through my head for a while, and it's one of those things that just, the best way I can explain is it just clicks, right? Sometimes things don't have a logical reason, really. There's something inside that it just snaps or it clicks, right? So I saw this quote. My sister-in-law put this quote up on Facebook a while back, and it's always just stuck with me, and I'll show you in a second. But it's the worse than hell is the thing that I kept seeing kind of over and over. There was something about it, and for whatever reason, call it madness, I wanted to be there, right? So I'm sitting there watching the news, seeing all this stuff, and this quote's in my head. And it says, "It may be that what you could be haunts you. It is real. It is a weight you have to carry around. Each failure to become, to be, is a weight. Each state you could inhabit is a burden as heavy as any physical weight, but more so because it weighs on your soul. It is a ghost of your possibilities hanging around your neck, an invisible albatross, potentials unknowingly murdered." That, combined with the fact that in my head, I've been saying kind of over the past 6 months or so, I won't live in a world where people suffer and I sit back and do nothing. So these things are kind of running through me, right? And I'm calling organizations, I'm calling, the Red Cross, I'm calling, different kind of relief organizations. I'm saying, listen, I'm able-bodied, I can take my own food, I can take my own water, I'm going to be self-sufficient, I can sleep on the ground, I can lift heavy objects, I'll do whatever it takes, just I want to go, I want to be there. And they said, well, do you have medical training? And I said, well, I've got CPR certification. And they said, okay, here's our donation link. Which is not a bad thing, right? Funds, money, all that stuff is important, right? But it's not what I wanted to do. So it's Thursday, the Thursday after the typhoon, and this is just running through me for a while. Finally, I'm at the gym, and basically, I just get pissed off. And I'm like, Okay, well, if you believe all this stuff, then it's time for the rubber to hit the road. So I went home and I booked a ticket to Manila, and then I called my brother and sister-in-law, and I said, which I had talked to them and let them know that I was kind of thinking about this, and I said, so you guys aren't going to like this. I booked a ticket to the Philippines, and I don't have a contact. They were actually very supportive of it. In their own way. They were supportive, but they were concerned, right? Again, a little bit of madness going on here. But from my perspective, it all made sense. Because what screws us up in life, most in life, is the picture in our head of what it's supposed to be, right? All of these words, all of these phrases that I put on Facebook and on Pinterest and all these things, they're not just quotes for me. They're actually ways that I view the world. They're ways that I actually view my life, and I try to take them and I try to put them into action. So I definitely believe this. If it doesn't challenge you, it doesn't change you. If it's not challenging you, it's not changing you. If it's not changing you, you're not growing. If you're not growing, why the hell are you doing it? I saw this at Potomac River Running in Leesburg. Took a picture of it. Anybody that has ever run a race or run in their life knows that wanting to do it isn't enough. You've got to want, you've got to have the desire, and then you've got to put it into action. Those two things combined actually get you results. And there are no excuses, there are only choices. There's no excuses for not doing the things that you want to do in your life. And if you don't believe me, believe this guy, right? Tell him their excuses for whatever it is that you're not doing. So all this stuff just builds up, and finally, like I said, I get pissed off. I book a ticket. Luckily, by the time it was about an hour before my flight on Korean Air, which I was going to Seoul, Korea, and then down to Cebu, because I'd actually gotten a contact in Cebu now that said, come on here, we'll try to get you to Tacloban. But an hour before my flight, I got a message from this lady, who was a friend of a friend of a friend of a friend. It's funny how that works, right? Facebook, absolutely the best communication tool for any kind of situation like this, or just meeting new people. You can say what you will about their privacy settings and all that kind of stuff, but right now I'm a huge fan. Because the things I learned and the people I've met wouldn't have been possible without Facebook. So I got a message from this lady, and she said, hey, you're coming to Cebu, I'm in Cebu, come here, I think we can get you to Tacloban either on a convoy or a flight, a commercial flight on Wednesday. My flight left on Sunday, I was going to land Monday night, meet with her on Tuesday, right? She might look a little familiar to you, right? Maybe? She's going to kill me for this. Magina Fernandez, the woman you just saw in the video right before, even though I didn't quite play as well as it should have. But she was the one that was quoted on CNN saying worse than hell, right? So anyway, I had actually blogged about this and mentioned that the worse than hell kind of caught my attention. And she had read that, and she told me, and she said, you know, I'm the one that was quoted on that. I hadn't seen the video at that point in time. And I said, well, that's coincidental. And I told her, well, you called me here, so whatever happens to me, it's on you. She's a fantastic lady. For anybody that's interested in anybody for an organization that's looking to be successful, that's looking for somebody that's willing to stand up for what they believe. They'll tell the president of the Philippines off on national TV. But she's the lady that actually went through the typhoon. Second floor of her house was ripped off. She said there's this black water that surfaces, and so she still has these dreams and everything about the black water coming up. She survived for 4 days. She got people in her immediate circle out and on a C-130 out of Tacloban. She had to travel for 4 days to get to the airport, crossing over debris that she said had bodies under it. Take that mentality of the victim, right? It's a victim mentality, obviously. And then it turns to a survivor mentality, and then it turns to a provider mentality in 4 days. Because in 4 days, she called Marie Harvey, one of her friends in Manila, and said, we've got to do something. Let's form an NGO and get people here to help. 4 days. Magina is actually hireable right now, so I would recommend that anybody's interested in somebody with this particular skill set, which could lead to massive success, and I think pretty much anything you want to do. She's your woman. Incredible person. Absolutely incredible person. Imagina, if you see this video, I'm sorry about the picture. So Kusog Tacloban, Kusog actually stands for strength. That was the organization I ended up actually hooking up with once I landed on the ground. And their whole mission, aside from what you can read there, giving strength to the greater Leyte Samar region, which Tacloban city is actually a part of, their whole thing is to get warm bodies there. Because this is one of the things I told them that I was going to bring back with me. Regardless of what's said on the news, regardless of what's said by the governments, things are not okay over there. Are they better? Yes. Are they okay? No. There's people that still do not have food and water right now while I stand here talking to you, and it's been a month. There's people I've been messaging on Facebook, and we've been talking, and they're running relief goods down there. Somebody said, hey, I have some extra relief goods, and it was like, well, we can either send it north or we can send it south, and they both need help. So how do you make that choice, right? So Kusog was about getting warm bodies, luckily I'm a warm body, getting warm bodies actually on the ground to do some good. So what was it like? I mean, this was my first view, right? I come off the airport, or the airplane, you land on the tarmac. If you're expecting to come into a nice airport with terminals and stuff, you're going to be sadly disappointed because it's a bunch of walls. There are no roofs, there are no terminals or anything like that. You get off the ground and you see these people standing there, and they're all people trying to get out of the city. They're trying to get on a C-130 military plane and get the hell out of there. And there's not room for everybody. View from the airport. The thing that struck me the most of this view, and I actually went down to Gulfport, Mississippi about a year after Katrina, because my dad was living down there during Katrina, and we went down for a visit. It's the trees. They're misshapen, and you're going to notice that as we go through some of these pictures. They don't look like trees anymore. They look like some kind of nightmare out of the Wizard of Oz or something, right? The trees, and then the houses, obviously, the structures. I saw these. These are different countries calling out for anybody that needs help. You know, whether you're British or Japanese, those are posted up at the airport. This is where I slept for 6 days. I was there for 9 days. I did get the luxury of moving to somewhere that had a generator and a warm bed, but about 2 inches of foam on a concrete floor. Doesn't matter. I'll say the living conditions don't matter. You don't go over there for that reason, and when you don't go over there for that reason, it really doesn't matter at all. There's no electricity, there's no running water. I mean, you expect that, right? I didn't expect this. Anybody that's followed my blog or watched Facebook knows how I feel about this guy and why I'm a huge advocate of KFC expanding their operations into the Philippines immediately. This guy and his symphony of 12 other roosters. 4 a.m., it's dark over there. It's dark for another hour and a half. This guy doesn't abide by that. He's not on daylight savings time or whatever, right? Yeah, we had a lot of issues. This is my faucet, so you have to actually go and get water out of the ground. It's not drinkable. You do need to get your own drinking water. This was my shower or my bath. You basically fill it up and you clean yourself in whatever manner that makes sense. And so a lot of times we do that under the cover of darkness because we want a whole lot of privacy. My bathroom, no, I didn't take a picture of it. I didn't want to run people out of here. It wasn't pleasant. There was a curfew, 8 p.m. to 5 a.m., military curfew. So you don't want to be out, especially being a foreigner. That was some of the rules that I was given. Paul, appreciate that. I was given the rules of he said I was either going to be the coolest thing that people had ever seen or a target. I'm like, well, we'll see which one of those ends up being. Luckily, I didn't have any problems with being a target, but I do appreciate that advice. I did break some of your rules, though. Apologize for that. Okay, so let's get to some of the destruction. Let's get some of the hard stuff out of the way. This was actually on one of the roads, and that's my buddy Ron. I'll talk about him in a minute. I actually had to navigate through that. There is a path. There is a path through everything. You have to find it, right? You just have to figure it out. It's massive devastation. I mean, the city is destroyed. It's been compared to the devastation of the Japanese tsunami. Body count of the tsunami was obviously a lot higher. I think it was about 200,000 people. body count for this, they're estimating it at 10,000. I don't think anybody wants to go into comparative suffering on this, though, right? You know, everybody's got some kind of story that you talk to. They know somebody that they've lost, or they've heard something, or whatever it is. I mean, it's just, it's devastating. The structures are devastating, the trees, everything. It's the lives, though. That's really what makes the difference, right? And I can sit here and I can tell you all day long what it's like, but the experience, which I'm trying to convey, I know it's not going to come through the way I'd want it to, but I'm going to try anyway. This was actually my first day. I took all these pictures on my first day. Little boy, nice giant tree right there. It's actually at one of the evacuation centers. That's a school, and I'll talk about that in a minute. The whole thing for me, though, was you can't go to a place like this and just look at the destruction and the devastation, and that's all you see. Because it will break you. I don't care how strong you are, it will break you. You've got to find something else, right? And I hope to show you some of that. The interesting thing about this was I see a lot of things that aren't where they're supposed to be, right? I didn't get a picture of it, but when I was coming in on the plane, the thing that I remember the most was I looking out over the water, and there are just giant semis placed in the water. Things are not where they're supposed to be. This boat, and Damani actually pointed this out. I thought it was a good thing. So the water's over here, right? The boat's on land. These trees aren't broken. Think about how high the water had to be for this to get there and not break the trees. Not a great picture because it's actually a picture of a picture, but there's another one of the giant ships that's now on land. Another one there as well. The positive thing was, and there are a lot of positive things, but over the time that I was there, I actually saw the city start to kind of repair itself, right? It's not in the rebuilding phase by any means. It's still in the relief operations phase, but it's starting to repair itself. So you've got some people that are actually working on their roof there. Calle Zaragoza, that's where I stayed the last 3 days. It was the first restaurant to come back to life, to come back open during this time. It was about 2 or 3 days after I was there. And so it was nice because people started showing up. You wonder why people can smile and do these things amidst this destruction. I think it's because you've got to have some kind of normalcy come back into your life, right? It's something to remind you that it has not always been like this, and it's not always going to be like this. But the more you can grab on to something and hold on to it, whatever the hell that is, the better it is, and the more you're likely to actually be able to then deal with all the heartache and all the challenges that come about. The market came back to life. Granted, the majority of it was probably 95% looted goods, but it did come back to life. It's the first time I bought stuff on the black market. Not something I'm particularly proud of, but it did go to a good cause. And then here, and it might be a little hard to see, some of the other pictures might be better, there's actually a giant machine, the crane, that's starting to clear out that debris, and that's actually my window shot from Calle Z. Picture of little girls' toys that are being hung out to dry. Devastation in one of the houses. I had somebody message me on Facebook, and I'll get to this in a minute, about how you help people in a way that you don't realize it. I just mentioned that I was doing something separately, reaching out to some barangays and everything, and they said, well, this is the name of my house, or this is the family name of my house. Can you stop by and take some pictures? And I stopped by and took some pictures, put them on Facebook, and she's like, it's great to see that my house is actually better off than a lot of them are. Anybody that followed my blog or watched me on Facebook knows that this school is particularly near and dear to my heart. It is, and you can't really tell by the sign because it's been destroyed, but it is Cirilo Roy Monteo National High School, which I'll talk about Valeria Gabrielle here in just a little bit. This is the principal's office. Faculty room. Notice there's no roof on most of it. One of their classrooms. It's one of the teachers there. She has a smile on her face, but she's standing amidst what's left of her classroom. They house about 1,600 students during the day and about 300 during the night. I was just talking to Jeremy right before this. I was talking to him and actually started doing some stuff with these guys, and I'll talk about the story that kind of introduced me to them a little bit later, but I adopted them. It's kind of just a personal thing, and thank you to those in Kusog Tacloban, because that organization decided to put this school on the short list of schools that they're actually focusing on, areas they're focusing on, to help build them back up. Rather than spread their funds very thin and create some level of change, but maybe not some that you can see, they're actually trying to pick specific areas, build them back up, and let them be kind of beacons of hope. And I think that's very, very important. And Cerullo Roy is just a fantastic school. But when I was talking to them, they did ask me for a generator, which I know nothing about generators. But if anybody has any leads on them, Jeremy, I'm looking at you. Hopefully we can kind of figure something out that would be an awesome Christmas gift for them, because right now they don't have power, right? The only place to get power is a generator, and you cannot get a generator in Tacloban because the city is destroyed. So you've got to import it from somewhere, whether it's the U.S. or an outside city in the Philippines, to kind of get it over there. Saw a lot of these, just cries for help. That's the hard stuff, right? It's really hard when somebody's standing in front of you saying it to your face. This was at one of the hospitals. Saw this my first day, very first day, a couple hours after I landed. No, I didn't open the casket. I have no desire to see what's in there, whether it's empty or not. I did see this my second day, I think it was, actually taking bodies out of the city because they can't have them in the city, right? Disease and everything. You've got to get them out. This was actually at the airport. You see a few of these, right? People that are missing. I mean, some of the places I went, you're just talking to the kids and they're fine, and then somebody comes up and says, yeah, that kid doesn't have a mom and dad anymore. And the kid's still smiling, and you're going to see these people smiling, and it's amazing to me that they're able to do this in such tragedy. But yeah, this little boy actually, I took that picture, so it would have been a month ago, but I actually saw somebody post it on Facebook recently looking for him. This girl as well, Nacy Pearl, saw that. I contacted her mom on Facebook and said, listen, I went to a lot of the evacuation centers. There's a lot of kids there. Her husband's there right now looking for her. I said, maybe there's something there, right? I reached out to some of my contacts. I said, anything you've got that might be able to help this. I mean, the sad thing is it's one little girl, and obviously that's a heartache, but she's representative of a lot of people, right? I've seen the pictures of people saying, my aunt or my grandmother's missing. There's no communications really. I mean, you've got phones, but a lot of people don't have phones. I took my phone in there, and luckily Verizon, which I'm going to give them a shout out in a minute, let me keep my service over there. But a lot of places I'm talking to, they don't have phones, they don't have communications to be able to contact people. So similar to Katrina, if you think about it, because there are a lot of people that actually moved and they just got them out of the cities, right? They put them in Texas and all the way up into Tennessee and everything. And the idea was that, well, we've got them safe, but then how do they reach their families, right? So, I mean, you kind of deal with that. There's one thing I'll say about this. There was a message on Facebook, and I understand the intention behind it. I get it. But I don't care what the statistics say. I don't care what the numbers back up. You don't have the right to take hope away from anybody at any point in time. I don't care who you are. You never have that right. I don't care if 99.999% of the stats support you and say that you're right. You do not have that right to take it away, because sometimes hope is all somebody has, and I would argue that sometimes it's all you need. So I'm hoping that little girl finds her way home. So I get over there. So what's the job, right? What is my job when I land? It's not to sit around, even though Chris is doing that. Chris is one of the volunteers. So actually what we did was we hooked up with the UNFPA, and that actually stands for United Nations Population Funds Activities They changed their name, but they didn't change their acronym, so it doesn't actually flow. But basically, we got hooked up with the UNFPA, great guy named Ron Villas, who is the humanitarian coordinator. The guy's a machine. I mean, he works and works and works, and he doesn't eat and he doesn't sleep, and he does it for what he believes in. Just amazing guy. So what Ron wanted us to do was, we had the American volunteers, and we were partnered up with a local volunteer. And the idea was that we then were going out to all the evacuation centers, right? And evacuation centers can be anything from a school to the Astrodome. It could have anywhere from thousands of people to maybe 30 people to go out to the evacuation centers. And we were there to survey and gather data and actually find out the number of pregnant women by trimester, age, name, that type of thing, number of women that had recently given birth, number of small children, all that kind of stuff, so that we could bring it back and they could aggregate the data so that that following Tuesday they could send people out by need, the area that needed the most need, or had the most need. They could send people out for medical missions. So that was our goal, to go there and to get this data, right? Here's another one of the kind of the briefing sessions in the morning. And so we divided it up by area. I think I ended up seeing about, going to about 16 to 20 evacuation centers. So there's my buddy Ron, 21-year-old kid. This kid's a rock star. I was actually talking to our recruiting department about this kid. Somebody's going to figure out what I figured out, and this kid's amazing. And they're going to grab him, and they're going to put him doing something, and he's just going to rock it. The kid's, he's smart, he's compassionate, he's analytical, he's a workhorse. I mean, we're working all day, and by the end of it, I'm kind of exhausted, and he's still going. I mean, it's just amazing. But anyway, they put us, I'm a little bit bigger than he is, but anyway, they put us on a trike. It's called a tricycle. Basically, this was the way to get around. I mean, you don't have cabs running in the city, right? And so basically, it's a motorcycle with a cab. Ron was kind enough to let me ride in the cab by myself, and then he rode on the back. I appreciate that. And then that was my view for most of the time, was just looking straight out of the trike. There's Manuel. Manuel was actually one of our trike drivers for about 2 days. He's having a good time. I probably said something or did something stupid. He's just laughing. So our job was to go to the evacuation centers and actually meet with the DSWD. And the DSWD is the social welfare. One of those Ds probably stands for department. I don't know the exact acronym. Basically, they're the people that are there to ensure that the needs are being taken care of. So the idea was that they would have the stats. But sometimes you go there and the DSWD is not there because they've been there for a little while and they have to go somewhere else. You know, resources, as you can imagine, whether it's people or otherwise, are pretty scarce there. That's one of the schools that actually served for an evacuation center. It's Bagukai Elementary School. We went to the Astrodome. Astrodome's huge. It's 2 floors of people, and then it's so big that you actually have to have a tent city outside of it. It was that large. So that was my job. But let me tell you about the real job and the lessons that I learned from it. That's one of the shirts Ron's wearing. That's Ron, our UNFPA contact. Everyone counts. Every single person counts. So here's the thing. If you go over there, and I would argue if you go over there for the right reasons, then there are certain things that you need to understand. One of those is it's not about you. And I've had disagreements with people about this, and I understand where they're coming from, and I appreciate where they're coming from. I just choose not to agree. It's got to come from a place that's not about you. And it's got to come from as much of a place to 100% as possible that it's not about you. And the reason is because you need to be able to see the need. You need to be able to talk to people and assess what's really going on. And I'll give you some examples of those in a little bit. The people will tell you, and this came from one of our trauma counselors, the people will, if you listen close enough, they will tell you what they need, even if they don't know. But the moment that it becomes about you and your ego starts playing into it, you're not going to be able to see the need. And trust me, you need to be able to see the need. So you don't get to choose how you help people. So we're at the Astrodome, and at that time, Ron's kind of just taken off. I mean, the kid's a rock star. He doesn't even need me. I'm dead weight. I know it at that point. So I'm there, and Ron does his thing, and he's like, Dave, I'm gonna go in here, and I'm gonna do the job, right? And it's like, so I do what I do best, right? And everybody in the crowd probably knows this. I walk around, and I talk to people. It's my way of getting information. And it's a great way to get information. So I walk around, I'm just assessing, right? At one point, this truck pulls up. And Ron, right before he's about to go, he looks at me, and we've been together long enough, and he kind of sees it, and he just goes, you want to help, don't you? And it's like, hell yes, I do. So what they're doing is they're unloading food, relief goods, right? And so the idea is that you get in line, and they give you the sack. Well, I got in line, and I don't know if they thought I was going to take it or eat it or whatever it is, but they kept like cutting in front of me, right? So finally, they realized that maybe I'm there to help, right? So they give me a sack. And the way you do the sack is you put it on your head. I tried to take it in my arms, one of them. They will not give it to you. They put it on your head, right? And so you take it, and then you walk it all the way up there, and you give it to them. At one point, the guy I'm about to hand it to says, it's 100 kilos. Doing my bad math conversion, that's 220 pounds. Seems a little heavy to me. I don't know, but I just know those things are heavy and extremely uncomfortable because it's not all rice in there. There are canned goods and all kinds of stuff. So I carried about 10 of those back and forth. And the thing that I wrote in one of my blog posts was, I carried the last bag. I carried about 10 of them, but I didn't carry all of them. I didn't carry the first one, and there was many of them in between that I didn't carry. And it doesn't matter because it's not about you. It's about the need. And the need, which I saw, was when the people lined up to get the food that I helped carry. That's what it's about. You don't get to choose how you help people, not if you're there for the right reasons. You also don't get to choose when you help people. So it's about midnight, 12:30, Philippines time. I think I was actually on the call with somebody in the States, which is about 13-hour time difference. So it was about 11, it would have been about 11 a.m. here in the States. And I hear, and it's myself, Crystal, and Chris, and they're both volunteers that came in separately. And they're there, and they're down in the first floor, and I'm up in the top floor, the second floor. And I hear some commotion and everything. And it's about midnight, and they had already gone to sleep. So I finally hear some people talking. So I go down there, and we have Chet, and she's at our door. I'm like, okay, so what's going on? And basically, what we find out is that something's going on with her aunt, right? And that's her aunt right there. That's Thelma. Something's going on. And so, okay, well, it's a couple houses down. We go down there, and Crystal's like, well, they must assume we're doctors because we're foreign. It's like, well, okay, that's a bad assumption because none of us are doctors. I know CPR. That's about it. So we get there, and Thelma is obviously pretty terrified. And she's pretty terrified because she can't really breathe, and she doesn't know what's going on with herself, right? So we start asking just basic questions, right? Are you taking any medication? Is there anything that could have triggered this and everything? Are you having any pains in your arm, signifying a heart attack? Crystal is a massage therapist, so she actually listened to the back, listened to her back, her lungs, to see if she had any fluid in there. She didn't have any fluid. I took Thelma's pulse. It was 60 BPM, so her heart wasn't elevated. Her heart rate wasn't elevated. So basically at that point, it's midnight. There's not like there's cabs going by and ways to get her there. So we basically assessed in our way that it wasn't anything hopefully too serious. And it sounded more like an anxiety, right? Anxiety triggered by what? Oh, I don't know, going through the worst typhoon known to man. That'll kind of do it, right? The only thing you can do, and she's terrified, and you give her a hug and you put your hand on her shoulder and you look her in the eye and you say, you're going to be okay. And inside you're just thinking, by God, I hope I'm right. That's all you can do. So we gave her our phone number and all that stuff, and then we left. We checked on them the next morning. They weren't there. We checked on them late that night, which is where this picture was taken. Chris had already left at that time, so he didn't make it into the shot. She's fine. She's good. She went to the doctor. It was anxiety. They did give her some anxiety pills. Ricky was the trauma counselor that had come in, and she actually gave her some kind of relaxation techniques and that type of thing. Sweet people, sweet people. I'm friends with Chet on Facebook, and I've I checked in with her on Friday, make sure everybody's good. Everybody's good. I sent her a message yesterday. I said, hey, just want to check. Everybody's still good. Haven't heard back, but I'm assuming that everything's fine. So you don't get to choose how you help. You certainly don't get to choose when you help, and you don't get to choose who you help. That's my buddy. Yes, he had to make it in there for anybody that saw his pictures. I mean, look at that belly. That's just awesome. So, no, I did not bring him back with me, even though I had a lot of encouragement from people here in the States. Yeah, international incident. Because basically, he belonged to the president of the university where the UNFPA was headquartered. So if I stole this guy, it might not have been international, but it would have been a local incident, right? So anyway, so I'm giving him some water. He was awesome. I had to throw him in here. So here's another lesson. Caleb Hernandez. This guy is not a model. He's not an author, though I think he could write a hell of a book. It would be pretty short about how to build better teams. So I met Caleb by happenstance. I was with Magina on my last night. I actually flew out of Tacloban, spent one night in Cebu, and flew back to the States. And I was at dinner with Magina, and we were just talking about some of my experiences and her experiences and stuff. And Caleb's sitting by himself at a table nearby, and he came over, he's like, oh, you're in Tacloban? I was like, yeah, I just got back 9 days, she lives there, et cetera, et cetera. He's like, oh, well, I was there for 2 weeks, I'm just coming back too. And I was actually a doctor who decided, similar to me, just saw the stuff that was going on and decided to go over there, and he hooked up with the American Red Cross. So Caleb lands 2 weeks, so he landed a few days before me, so it's probably roughly about a week and a half after the typhoon hit. Caleb gets to the hospital. He's the only doctor in the entire hospital. He's the only doctor for the entire area that the hospital services. And he's got a staff of 5 nurses for everybody in the area. And so we're talking to him, and we say, how did you do this? And he said, well, basically what I did was I set up stations, 5 stations, 1 for each nurse, and I said, Nurse A, you're going to do A, B, and C. And Nurse B, Nurse 2, whatever number I'm on, you're going to do D, E, and F, right? And he signed them all these tasks. He said, that's all you're going to do. And he said, when people come in, you're going to check them for dehydration and something else. And he said, that's going to be 90% of the people. You've got to narrow your focus. And so he said it was basically like, they just set up a triage, right? And it's station 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, boom. Station 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, boom, rinse and repeat, right? They were able to service 95 people a day by doing this. 95 people a day. I take away a lot from this. So anybody that's interested in learning how to build better teams, think about this. Pretty simple, really. 1, everybody's got to know what the overall mission is, right? Sounds like a no-brainer, but it's still pretty important. For them, what's their measure of success? I imagine it's somewhere in the neighborhood of keeping people alive. Everybody's got to know what their role is and how it fits into the picture. And just because they don't know what the people are doing next to them, as long as they know that it's being taken care of, they can focus on their job. 95 people. Why didn't they get to 96? So I'll tell this little story because it stayed with me for about 18 years. Wow, I'm getting old. About 18 years, and it was actually said in a church setting, so I figured it's okay, appropriate for this. So there's a banquet, right? And there's a guy sitting next to a lady, and he turns to the lady, and he says, ma'am, will you sleep with me for $1 million? And the lady looks at him and says, why, yes, sir, I will. And then he looks at her, he says, okay, will you sleep with me for $10? And she looks at him, and she's appalled, and she says, sir, what kind of person do you think I am? And he says, ma'am, we've already established what kind of person you are. We're just negotiating the price. Guarantee these guys didn't hit 96 because of money. If somebody had walked in and said, I will give you X amount of money to motivate you to get to the 96, I'm sure you would have offended them to no end. And I hope they would have done the same thing I would have done, and that would have been toss your ass out of there so that you get back to what's most important. So anger. I was a little pissed off when I went, as I mentioned, right? That anger has a purpose. Luckily, I was able to find a home for it. Anybody that's on my Facebook page knows that I was not happy about this. 2 days before I left, I'm coming back from, it's about 5 or 6 in the afternoon. I'm coming back on the trike, and I pass this sign. Barangay, B-R-G-Y, Barangay, hope I'm pronouncing that right. Regina will send me an email if I'm not. Barangay is basically like a district or an area, right? And every barangay has elected officials, generally the captain, who's responsible for those people, right? Barangay 80 needs help, no food, water, and shelter. So I passed by it, and I'm thinking, well, surely that's old, right? I mean, surely somebody's seen that. They've talked to them, all that kind of stuff. I'm driving, and we don't get too far, and I turn to Jesus, my trike driver at the time, and I say, turn it around, let's go. So turn it around, go back, and I talk to Jason, who's the barangay captain. And I said, so this is old, right? And he's like, no. He's like, no. We have food in the back of a truck for 405 families right now. 405 families, not individuals. That's how much food they had for these people. How much water? You don't see any water, do you? So yeah, I got a little pissed off. So I took information. He didn't have a phone. I took somebody else's information and said, I'll talk to my contact, see what we can do, right? About 5 minutes later, maybe not even, I see this, right? 76. I'm like, okay, stop. Let's go talk to him. Paul, this is where I break the I broke the rule, because they said that the person I needed to talk to was down that alley, and I was supposed to follow that little girl down there. Well, I did it, and obviously I'm fine, right? Not recommending for anybody else to do that, just for the record. But anyway, so I get their contact information. So finally, I'm going back, and I'm sitting there in that trike, and I'm getting mad and mad and mad. I'm sitting there talking to myself, as I sometimes do, and I'm sitting there, I'm just going, you're not here to save the world. You're not here to save everybody. You're not here to save everybody. And then I'm just like, damn it, but I want to try. So I get on Facebook, and I put the pictures out there, and I put the message out there and everything. I basically just say, hey, listen, guys, here's what's going on. I'm pissed off about it. Do what you think you need to do. I'm going to do it as well. It was great, the outpouring from it. I had people just started contacting local officials and random people, and the next day I was getting calls from people, I don't know who the hell they are, friends on Facebook now, so obviously it means something. But the idea was that these people wanted to help. And it was everybody from people that had contacts in the local government to contacts at the DSWD to people that were just local citizens that had seen it and said, I want to do something. This is not okay. The next day I saw this one as well. Talked to one of the guys. This is Barangay 95A. So basically and this was the day before I left, right? And so I keep telling people, I'm trying to emphasize to them the importance of finding somebody going and systematically inspecting the barangays, because these are just the ones I'm seeing, right? Just passing by happenstance, right? There's over 100 barangays in the area. Somebody needs to systematically go and inspect these and see if they have food and water. It's been a month. Wars have been fought and won in less time. I did stop by the Barangay 76A, which you saw. I don't think this was due to anything I did, but I did the next day when I was checking on them. They did have food and water delivered, so that was great. And I took a picture with that nice lady who I have no idea what her name is. Here's the thing, lesson, big lesson. You want change to happen, you have to see what it can be, not what it is. Oh, and there's one more thing. You got to believe it's possible. That's pretty important. Superheroes, right? I like them. I think most people know that know me. More lessons learned. Yeah, I had a Superman shirt, had the cap, ended up giving the shirt away to somebody. Had to go buy another one. The reason I wear it is not because I think I'm anything special. The reason I wear this apparel and stuff, because for me, it's a reminder to pull out the best part of myself, and if for nothing but a moment, do something with it. It's a call to action. It's a reminder. Hopefully, I was able to do it for more than a moment while I was there. Christopher Reeve knows something about heroes, right? A hero is an ordinary individual who finds the strength to persevere and endure in spite of overwhelming obstacles. I would add on to that they're also a person that's willing to take a part of themselves, give it to somebody else or the world, and not ask for anything in return. Heroes are hard to find. Not where I was, they weren't. I saw them daily. I was able to interact with them, be around people that are willing to be compassionate and give parts of themselves and do things for each other without asking anything for return. These are people that make you better by being in their presence. And I was unworthy and honored at the same time to be around them. Amazing, absolutely amazing. When you start to be in an area and you spend a day where extraordinary events become ordinary, it becomes normal occurrence. These guys are awesome. True Manila. You got Elena, Ryan, Miguel, Edwin, German 1 and German 2, because I didn't get their names. These guys drove from Manila all the way to Tacloban, 6 days, 18 tons worth of relief goods in semi-trucks with armed guards, dropping relief goods off all along the way. They actually just completed their second trip. Edwin was talking about doing possibly a third trip, but I think he's going to follow his own dream and go to New York. Godspeed, brother. You got some of the Kusog Tacloban volunteers. That's me with a few of them. The world came. You've got people there were people in my group that were from the U.S., that were from Iran, people from Israel. The Koreans were there. I mean, just every nationality. Was there enough support? I've got my own opinions about it, and I'm not here to be politically incorrect about anything, but I would encourage you to check the news and check the real news of what's being said and what's being needed on the ground. There are still people that do not have food and water, and it has been over a month. So I put on the shirt. That's Jet and Fiery. That's my buddy Ron right there. It's another Ron. We called him German Ron. He was Casanova Ron because he's just the guy knows how to speak to the ladies. It was impressive. I took some notes. This is Lou, one of the first kids I met. Kids are absolutely amazing. I wrote this on Facebook. If ever in doubt of the strength and compassion of humanity, look to the children. They will show you the way. The kids are absolutely amazing. They are resilient. They just have it's like the best part of people, the best part of the human spirit just comes alive in them amidst tragedy and destruction, and when they have every reason not to smile, they are. This little girl, it's awesome. I was passing by one day and we were going to our first meeting, and she just yells at me. She says, never, 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 never give up. From the mouth of babes. I was at one of the schools, that was Bagakai. I gave you a picture of that earlier. These kids are funny. I went there, and the kids just come out. Man, the kids they're awesome. And they just come out, and they follow you around, because I asked them, I said, will you guys take a picture of me when I got there? They're like, no. I said, will you guys show me around? They're like, no. So I start walking around, and they're following me. I was like, what are you guys doing? You said no, and now you're following me. After about 20 minutes, we took a ton of pictures together. Just awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. The kids are amazing. That's Bagakai High School. They actually followed us out when we went to another one of the evacuation centers. This was funny. The market opened, and it was raining. It's pouring rain one day, and so I need to get some supplies for Cirilla Roy. And so I'm running through the market, and I'm running back, and everybody's on the sidelines and everything, kind of taking cover. And then the tarp blows off, right? And I got the Superman shirt on, right? So I stop, and I grab the tarp, and I'm actually holding it like this, right? And then the place just erupts. The place erupts. People are just cheering, and they're yelling Superman, all this stuff. And my sister-in-law's like, yeah, and the tarp was waving behind you like a cape. And I was like, I don't know, that was true. She's like, a creative license, right? But anyway, I took a picture with these kids. That was actually the stand there. Philippine Science High School, might be a little dark. We actually went there to help with play therapy. Ricky was the trauma counselor, and she was actually doing some trauma counseling with the adults and everything. And so Crystal and myself, she's actually behind that little girl helping her. Some of the kids actually do the pull-up on themselves. But we were there, and we were talking about, like, what are we going to do? Like Red Rover and all that stuff. And I was like, why don't we put them through a fitness boot camp? Great idea on my part. Somehow I become the sidekick in it, and Crystal's leading it, whatever. Anyway, and then at one point, I was like, let's have them do pull-ups. And I was like, well, we can use our arms because we got nothing else, right? And so actually, we got more tired than the kids. Some of them are a little bit heavy. Some of the winners from some of the events that we had there. Then a picture, there was about 47 of them, so we took picture at the end with them. I came the next day, and they remembered the pull-up thing, and I didn't have anything to hold on to. So anyway, by the end of that, my arms are all red, and I'm tired and ready to go home. But the kids are just absolutely amazing. Just fantastic. So a little thank you intermission real quick. Grace isn't in the room. Wish she was. Grace Basilio over in the help desk. Huge help. She called me crazy a few times. Rightfully so, probably. But she was the one that ultimately connected me with Eleanor, who connected with Mylene, who connected me with Magina, which was my contact. Paul, again, thanks for the advice. I appreciate it. I got advice from a lot of people and everything. Carrie Birch isn't here, but I want to thank Carrie. She gave me all kinds of great advice, like, hey, just go, which I ultimately did, right? She gave me a list of things I needed to do, vaccinations. Vaccinations are great. You do have to watch out over there for malaria. You know it's pretty bad. There's three main things that you have to watch out for. You know it's pretty bad if you're going to get something, you're hoping it's malaria. Because dengue fever is no fun, and lepto kills you in 3 days. So malaria is the one you shoot for. All right, there you go. So this was Cahiers Z. And yes, I censored myself on this. This was a place I stayed, and I wanted to thank Jerry and Ludette. The funny thing is I put this picture on Facebook uncensored, and I'm putting all these pictures of like these kids and these cute things and blog posts and all that stuff. I'm getting like 10 likes, 30 likes, whatever. I got 70 likes on this thing, and they weren't all girls. So anyway, I expect if anybody sees this, Men's Fitness is going to come knocking on my door to be on the cover of their magazine. Just give me a couple weeks, get up to par. I'll get there. Shout out to Plantation Bay. Plantation Bay is fantastic. They're resort and spa, and I stayed there in Cebu on my trip in and out. The staff is wonderful. They gave me a great rate. Just an amazing place. So if you're ever in Cebu, this is definitely a great place to stay. Personal missions. Ooh, running short on time. Anybody that's read my blog post knows probably what these stories are. The school, the car, and the baby. Sounds like a joke. So the school. Abakai Elementary School. I went there, and we're doing our rounds, right, of trying to get information and everything. At one point, they say, we don't have any water. So, okay, how long has it been since you had water? And they said, since the typhoon, which was almost 2 weeks at this point. You haven't had any drinking water in 2 weeks. How are you alive? Well, they've been going 30 minutes up to a mountain, getting water, and coming back. I don't know all that much about camping, but I'm pretty sure that's not drinkable. They're doing what they have to do to survive. So I'm standing there, and I'll tell you one thing. If you're going to wear a Superman shirt and walk around and somebody stands in front of you and says they don't have any water, you better be willing to step up. So I called my friend Jet. I called a couple contacts. I ultimately called Jet. Within 2 days, I believe it was WASH. I don't know what the WASH stands for. I'm sure the W stands for water or something. Amazing people, whoever they are. Within 2 days, they had 200 bottles of water for 95 people. Jet, you are absolutely an angel, and I will definitely come get that beer sometime. Thank you very much for that. The car. I introduce you to Valeria Gabriel, the principal of Cirillo Roy Monteo National High School. I'm there, I'm doing my thing. Ron's kind of running, it's like our 6th one on that day. I'm kind of zoning out a little bit. Ron's talking to her, and at some point we start talking. I don't remember how it happened. And Valeria tells me about the water, how high it got. She's right there. I come up to about right there. It's about 2 feet above my head. That's 8 foot of water. I said, what did you guys do? And she said, well, a hole broke in the roof, and her husband, you can't see it, but he stood on a pedestal and he pushed his family out of that hole. The worst typhoon known to man, and your only hope of survival is to go outside on a roof. Let that sink in for a minute. Now let this. Valeria couldn't fit. She couldn't get through the hole. I said, what did you do? She said, I swam. You swam in 8 foot of water. I'm a swimmer. I don't think I could do that. And she swam outside. She swam outside around the corner to this little alleyway between the buildings, and you can't really see it, but there's a bamboo there, and she said, I rested my head on the back of the bamboo, and I floated for 2 hours in a typhoon while who the hell knows what's happening to her family. I'm able to deal with a lot of stuff. I consider myself to be able to deal with a lot of things. I saw a lot of stuff over there. This got me. Something broke inside. I'm starting to well up. We call it sweating from the eyes. Her son, Alan, who actually a couple days later, I'd sent him my blog post and everything, and he read it, and he saw I said that. He's like, dude, it's a good thing you didn't start crying. With a big old dude like this, I would have just started laughing at you. I was like, thanks, man, I appreciate that. But anyway, I'm just sitting there, and I'm looking at Valeria, and I'm like, how did you do this? And she said, and I'll always remember this, I'm 62 years old, and I was feeling young. Impressive woman, just sweet, sweet, sweet. And I've got a video of her, of an interview with her and everything where she's talking about the school and stuff, and I'll post that on Facebook. So I'm sitting there, I'm asking, like, what do you guys need? And they're like, well, we could use some diapers and some lighters. I'm like, okay, fine, whatever. Get you that stuff. What do you really need? At some point, one of them says the car, all right? This was fun. Not the best picture of it, because it's actually down in a ditch. And there's probably about this much room between the front of the car and this concrete wall. And it's like, okay. And Ron's there, and I'm there, and I'm looking at Valeria, and I remember at one point I told her, you're my hero, true to this day. Of all the women in the world, I never thought a 62-year-old Filipino grandmother would be the one to capture my heart. But she did. She still got it. And I just looked at it, and I looked at Ron, and I surveyed it. I said, we're moving this damn car. So I get my gloves out. Alan comes out to help her son. Somehow her husband, who's asleep inside, I don't know if he teleported or what, but he's there beside us. Jerry, one of the teachers, who's just a monster workhorse, just stops moving debris, and he comes over. Some guy comes around the corner. I don't know, there's 6 of us at one point, ready to move this car. Valeria's there, cheering us on and everything. And so what we end up doing is rocking it back and forth a number of times. Finally, somebody gets rope, her husband goes and ties it to the back of the car, which is awesome. That's another lesson. If you ever need a rope tied, find an old person. They know how to tie rope. I don't. I quit Cub Scouts very early on in my life. But anyway, and we just pull, and we're pulling, and finally, I'm just screaming in my head, and not to use expletives for this. You can read my blog post if you want to know what I really said. I'm just screaming, pull. I mean, we're going to move this damn thing, come hell or high water. And finally, the car starts to move. And finally, it moves, and we pull it, and we finally get it on level ground, and you can finally turn the wheel and everything. And then it was just, there was actually underneath it, you can't see, but there was a hole there. And finally, we were able to maneuver it out, and we were able to move the car, right? Victory, right? And Valeria's yelling. She's like, Captain America, and all this stuff. And, somebody, your hero's yelling for you. You're not going to stop, right? A couple days later, I go. That's Alan. An organization had come by, changed the battery, given it an oil change. I don't know what kind of car that is, but I'd like to buy one because it was under about 8 foot of water. And then I come by a couple days later, it's gone. They were able to drive it and go to Valeria's home and start repairing their home. And there's a picture that we took after that's the team, right? It's the whole thing again of, don't ever tell me that there are excuses for things. I will introduce you to a number of people that will prove you wrong. There are no excuses. There are only choices. The baby. So I'm at Abukai, which is the school where we end up getting the water. And sorry, guys, I'm running over time. If anybody has to leave, you're not going to offend me. We're about to leave because we've got more evacuation centers to go, and somebody comes out and they're yelling at me, right? And Ron and I go in there, and they said, and I see this baby, right, there, and the mother, and I talked to him briefly and everything, and Ron, he says, they want you to be the godfather. And I'm like, okay, well, I've never seen the Godfather movie, so I don't really know how this works. But anyway, and so I was like a little taken back. I wasn't sure, you know. I mean, obviously it's an honor and everything. And so I said, well, what's involved in being the Godfather? And he said, well, generally you give a gift. So I was like, okay, well, so yeah, I give him some pesos and everything. And I don't think too much about it. But the interesting thing about it was I was talking to him, and you can't really tell right there, but his leg's not bent in. It's actually, there's a club foot. His left foot is bent in, club foot. And I talked to him, and I said, because, well, medically over there, it's kind of cheap sometimes, right? People actually go over there for medical services. It's actually really good for people. You can just walk in the door and get things done. I said, how much is it? And Ron and his mother both say, well, it's very expensive. And I was like, okay. And it was time to go, moved on, didn't really think about it. That was on a Thursday. Sunday, I'm going, and we're actually going with the UNFPA to a hospital to move some of the medical supplies for the medical missions, right? And so we're talking to, and Ron Villas, he's in the front, and I say, Ron, just had an idea. I said, Ron, can you introduce me to a doctor, a surgeon, preferably one that's Filipino? In any other circumstance that might be an odd request, Ron didn't have a problem with it. He's like, yeah, sure, no problem. So Ron introduces me to a doctor who gets me to another doctor. Enter Dr. Lito Cablau, and I don't have a picture of him. Dr. Cablau, talking to him, I said, just off chance, here's a picture of Gabriel, here's left club foot, what's involved in this? He tells me about the process. It's a casting process over 10 to 12 weeks where they change the cast once a week, and then ultimately they make an incision for the surgery and then align it. And he says, is this trauma or is this, was this birth? And I said, well, my understanding it's birth, right? It didn't happen because of the typhoon and everything. I said, how much? What's the cost in this? Just ballpark, right? And he says, well, with all the relief stuff going on, there's no cost. And I just do a double take. I imagine my jaw would have hit the ground if I had you're telling me it's free? And so he says, yeah. I said, so basically all they need are funds to get from point A to point B on a weekly basis. He's like, yeah. I was like, well, I'm the Godfather. I can cover that. That's not a problem. And so I said, are you here tomorrow? And he said, yeah, as long as you get them in by 12. I said, well, we'll be here. So fast forward to Monday morning, I stopped by Abukai. They had not seen me since that one day, so I go in there, probably a little awkward for them, a little weird. Foreigner steps in and he says, are you busy? Would you take a ride with me to the hospital? So anyway, then I end up explaining kind of the scenario, right? And the mother's like, well, give me a little bit. So anyway, and I never found out if it was her brother or Gabriel's father. Anyway, they three are in the trike. I'm on the back of the trike, which is not very big, so that was very weird. I was like, is this thing even going to make it up a hill? But anyway, we get to the hospital. We're sitting there. Dr. Cablau's on a Navy ship transporting a patient. So that was my blog post for some of the people that were on Facebook. I said I never thought I would be standing alone in a Filipino hospital waiting on a surgeon, which got a few interesting replies from people. It's a good way to tease up the following blog post and actually have people read it. Anyway, Dr. Cablau finally shows up, introduce him to the family. He and Dr. Gilbert Ola examine Gabriel, kind of run through the scenario and everything, and say either at 1.5 months or in 1.5 months, they can actually start the casting process and that it will be free. So there's a picture of us. So anyway, to kind of end that piece of it, I gave them my contact information, gave him some pesos for the trike rods, gave him one of my Superman shirts. I had 2 of them. Admittedly, one of them was actually small, tight, even for me, believe it or not. I actually gave it to him, and I told his mom, I said, it's too big for him now, but he'll grow into it, and he's going to grow up big and strong. And I was talking to somebody last night because they were trying to get this package to Gabriel. They actually had they had some baby clothes, right? And they were gonna donate them, and they said, well, we'll try to give some of them to Gabriel, take him to Abukai. He's actually not at Abukai anymore. I don't think that serves as an evacuation center anymore, which is great, right? So we were talking about it, kind of going back and forth. I was like, well, I don't know his name. I don't know his information, any of that stuff, and that's not the point, right? And she was saying, well, this could have happened, and that could have happened. And I said, I understand that. You've got to know your role in this. You've got to know what you can do and where it stops being about what you can do. At some point, other things take shape. Other people get involved. Other forces in life take over. You can't do this based on the results that you get. Because the moment you're tied to the results, especially when they're about somebody else, you might as well quit now. It's got to be about your part and let the results take care of themselves. My hope is that Gabriel has the surgery and he's able to stand on his 2 feet and he's able to run and he's able to walk and he's able to have a normal life that kids there deserve without any memory of the typhoon that came in and ravaged their entire country. That's my hope. That's my belief. And no matter what anybody says, I'm sticking to it. And it's on the shirt here. Bongon Tacloban, hope I pronounced that right, Regina, keep me honest, means rise Tacloban. The country and the people will rise again. In many ways, they already have. One point I wanted to make real quick that I didn't before I just wrap this up is treat your heroes well. The people that are doing things, whether it's over there, relief effort, whether it's your doctors, your teachers, your military personnel, your single parents, whoever it is, treat them well. They've seen things, they've experienced things, and there's no way that you can understand that, and that's fine, but the support that you can give means a lot. And I say this not because I need anybody to come up to me afterwards and ask it. I'm fine, trust me. But out of all the people I know, I think I know that there were only 2 people, one here and one in the Philippines, that actually asked me, am I okay? Actually asked about my well-being. Whether you need it or not, that meant something to me, right? And just keep in mind that words mean something. All the ones you say and all the ones you don't. Treat your heroes well. There's need all around us. It's not just in the Philippines. You don't have to travel halfway around the world to see it or fulfill it. I mean, the way I look at it is it's 100,000 Syrian refugees right now that don't have a home. Just a few weeks ago, there were 80 people mass executed in North Korea. Bring it a little closer to home. There's 700,000 people in Washington, D.C. who are hungry. 200,000 of those are children. A little closer. What about the homeless population here in Loudoun County? Just because you don't see them out on the street holding a sign or pushing a shopping cart doesn't mean it doesn't exist. What it usually looks like is they have jobs, they dress well, they sleep in their cars. There might be one of them in this room right now. Any closer? Sterling, Virginia. Human trafficking. I can't even talk about that. There's need everywhere, and if you don't think it's on your doorstep, you're living in an alternate version of reality. Some would claim that I live in an alternate version of reality, but at least I can see the need. So I've heard before that they say we don't need superheroes. We don't need people doing things on their own. I will respectfully and adamantly disagree. 100%, 110%. We need people capable of doing extraordinary things and then being able to come together in teams to be able to do even more extraordinary things. So consider this a call to action. Calling all heroes, angels, and people willing to do good. Hell, I'll even take some bad guys looking at a shot at redemption. The need is great. The world needs it more now than ever. And for what it's worth, I will stand with you until the end and then some. So how do you wrap this up? I'm going to take a cue from Randy Pausch. Anybody that knows this guy knows of him. He's the great teacher, lecturer, inspiring motivational speaker from Carnegie Mellon who gave the last lecture. He ultimately died of pancreatic cancer a few years ago. Great loss to the world. But Randy would talk about the head fake. When you think you're learning something, but you're actually learning something else. I like to call it the Mr. Miyagi, right? So this presentation was not about my journey halfway around the world to the Philippines. It wasn't about relief efforts. What it was about was how to build a better world. one that I would very much like to live in. And if you're with me, then let's get it done. Thank you for your time. Be safe and dream well.